Hello, Ted Morrissey here, doing my last video of this session in our horror and sci-fi by women writers course. And as you know, we looked at three stories for this last go around. We looked at The Death Mask by Mrs. H.D. Everett, which first appeared in her collection, The Death Mask and Other Ghosts in 1920. We took a look at Virginia Woolf's very short story, A Haunted House, which appeared in her collection Monday or Tuesday, 1921. And then finally, we looked at May Sinclair's Where Their Fire Is Not Quenched, which appeared in the English Review in 1922. Um, in the written notes that I gave you, they focused almost exclusively on Sinclair's story, and we got into some really interesting issues regarding boredom, and how important that may be in terms of creativity and things like that. I wanted to focus this video on Woolf and A Haunted House. Woolf is probably the best known writer in this entire anthology. I mean, we did encounter other writers that are still pretty well known today, notably someone like Edith Wharton, for example. Unfortunately, most of the authors that we're encountering in this anthology have kind of fallen out of favor and aren't read very much these days, which, of course, is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this course and why I wanted to use this anthology. I think it's good to bring back some of those little red writers and see what they were up to, because oftentimes, they were extremely popular in their day, and there's no good reason really why their fiction has kind of fallen out of favor. Why some things last and are kind of read generation after generation, and why other things kind of fade away is kind of a mystery. Oftentimes there's luck involved. Um, just happening to strike a chord at just the right time. Other kind of factors can influence changes in technology of printing and distribution and so forth can make a big difference. Being sort of embraced by the academic community. Therefore, teachers have generation after generation of students read a particular writer or a particular story or novel, and so that just sort of is self-perpetuating, time and again. But Virginia Woolf is definitely one of those writers that is still obviously very influential and discussed a lot. I go to this conference every February at the University of Louisville. It is a conference on basically writing and culture after 1900. So it includes both the 20th and 21st century in terms of authors, and also film and other kind of cultural things, mainly books and authors and so forth. And there are two authors who, when there are panels and presentations about those authors, you can count on pretty much a full house for each of those presentations. One is James Joyce, still has a huge following, obviously, and the other is Virginia Woolf. William Gass, sadly, not so much. But if you're giving a paper on Virginia Woolf at that conference, you can count on having a pretty large crowd of people to listen and to ask questions and so forth afterwards. So again, very influential. So I want to talk about A Haunted House. We discussed it a little bit on the discussion board and so on, and we know that it inspired the film, A Ghost Story, and so on. But in many ways, it's not representative of most of Virginia Woolf's fiction, at least on the face. Now, as I've had to kind of acknowledge in embarrassment, I'm not as well read in Virginia Woolf as I feel like I ought to be. But I've read about her work, and like I said, have gone to numerous kind of presentations about her work. So I have a little bit of a familiarity with her, in spite of my ignorance when it comes to actually reading some of her, landmark novels. But like I said, on the one hand, she's not really known for writing supernatural tales. She's writing just as kind of they're coming out of the Victorian era into the Edwardian era. The Victorian era, especially the end of it, perhaps is well known for the Gothic, ghost stories, and of course, this is the time period of Stoker's Dracula novel, and all those kinds of things. Again, Woolf is beyond that time period somewhat. Yet authors, of course, are still writing, supernatural fiction and so forth in her time period as well. But she normally did not. For one thing, we know personally she didn't believe in spiritualism and the occult the way some authors did. Much more of an intellectual, very logical in her reasoning and so forth. And so, again, on the surface, it seems like this is sort of a unique story among her many, many stories and novels and so forth that she wrote. But looking at it from another angle, though, while she didn't write overtly about ghosts and haunted houses and so forth, other than here, very often, she was oftentimes focused on how the past haunts the present. Maybe not in a sort of literal, supernatural, ghostly kind of way, but very much focused again on how past events and particularly places still impact the present, right? And obviously, she's not the first writer to do that, nor the last. But in her fiction, she particularly focuses on the sort of psychological impact of past events, people we've lost, again, places and sort of memories that are associated with them. So she focuses on the psychological impacts of those kinds of things, maybe more so, and maybe in a particularly masterful way compared to other authors, right? So again, not unique to talk about lost people, places we used to live, where we went to college, where we were married, where we went on our honeymoon, where this happened or where that happened. But really looking at the psychological implications of encountering those either places or the memories of people and so forth, more so than other authors have really explored, or at least before her time period. And so I want to kind of throw that out there, and I want, I'm going to make this a fairly brief video. That's really what I want to kind of underscore here: this idea of being haunted by things and places more so than by actual supernatural manifestations, and haunting in a very sort of deep psychological kind of way. What emotions do they stir, right? What feelings do they conjure these different places and so forth, right? So I'm just curious, maybe what are some examples of similar kinds of narratives you're familiar with, where the author or maybe screenwriter or whoever is really playing with this idea of the psychological impact of places and lost people, lost things, and so forth. Maybe your own thoughts on haunting of this particular ilk, a kind that isn't so much supernatural as it is psychological. Right. So I'll stop there, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about all of that. And I won't be seeing you down the digital trail for a while at least, but it's been a great working with you these last 8 weeks, and hopefully we'll have a chance to work together in the future.